Today, I want you to join me in painting this scene. I've been wanting to slow things down a bit with this channel. I know that this might be a bit different from what I'm usually posting, but ultimately, I just want to have a very relaxing time whilst painting. I want to share that with people, that feeling that painting gives me, especially outdoors. So today, I will walk you through my mental process while I'm outside, but without talking too much. Like, there's gonna be moments of silence and there's gonna be moments of explanation. And I hope that some of it will be helpful, or just a nice thing to have in the background and relax and unwind from a maybe busy day from work or studies. As you can see, I am just sketching the view, not being very meticulous on what I'm sketching. I just want to get the two shapes, which is the shadow shape of the houses and the trees, and also the sky. I'm most interested in the sky, and so I try to find the right color that I want to put down first. Sometimes it's challenging to really know what color is right, but one thing I've learned is that usually mixing the secondary color, so an orange in this case and a blue-green for the sky, is what usually gives the best results. When I'm outside, I also remember that the goal is not to make things exactly as I see them or just as good as Mother Nature has done them. It's much more about capturing the feeling that this landscape gave me instead of worrying too much about the detail or the right colors and stuff. Of course, I want to be able to replicate color in a better way, but at the end of the day, I need to learn and not forget to enjoy painting. While painting skies, I usually try to divide the usage of the warm and the cool colors. As you can see, I start first with the warmest and then I choose the cooler colors and put them down. The sky was very much like a green. In the picture is not very clear because it's a bit different and the camera captures things differently than how I see them in real life. As you can see, I start using both the cool and the warm colors in the clouds because there's a shadow there. And usually cloud shadows are made out of like this tertiary color, usually mixed from both of the secondary colors of the sky, being the blue of the sky and the yellow orange in the sky. I also use that color to fill up the rest of the foreground, since it usually the colors in the sky will be reflected or present in the shadows. And since this is the shadow shape, I am just making an assumption that those colors are there, even though I don't necessarily see them. But the wash is gonna be so light that it's not gonna matter at the end because I'll be using much thicker and more opaque paint for the foreground. I'm already moving to do the foreground because I feel like when I try to overwork the sky, it just turns out much worse than I wanted to. So I'm very careful of just going over the sky once. I mean, I'm not saying that I did that right now, but I was thinking about it that no, I just need to do this one time just to avoid overworking the sky. This distant hill is not very easy to see in the picture, but it was there, or maybe it wasn't. Then I noticed that that color was kind of present in the darker clouds, which were very hard to make because the paper wasn't wet still, and this is not a watercolor notebook, so the watercolor doesn't react the same way, it doesn't fuzz as easily as it does on watercolor paper. You can see my indecision here, and that is caused because of the red that I see in the house in the distance. It's very hard to override the thinking of, oh, it's red, therefore it needs to be bright red. So I try to do everything around the house first, just so I could get a better gauge of what value it should be, as well as which colors around it will make it seem more red or more warm when it actually shouldn't be too red or too warm. I took out my smaller brush because I felt like there was too much water in the palette and the paper was still not dry. I mean, it's still very cold outside, so the paper doesn't dry as fast as you want it to. And so I thought that this was gonna make it more manageable to paint. But even with the smaller brush, it picked up too much water, and you'll see it bleeding right now. It is important to not try to correct the small mistakes that we see ourselves make, especially in watercolor, because you can just make a much bigger mess. I used a bit too much red on the second house because I thought that the first house looked too much of a red violet, and I instantly regretted it and added more of the red violet to that house. But that's okay, that's how we learn. At the end of the day, one of the hardest things to learn in watercolor and plein air painting is learning to see and learning to know what color you're actually seeing. The biggest mistake that I see myself doing is thinking about the color that I see instead of trying to just replicate the color. For example, the blue that I'm putting down now is a representation of the white that I see in the house. I know that the house is painted white there, but the light from the sky, which is to my back, is reflecting on that white, making it look blue, but not even an intense blue. It has to be a little bit dull because it's in shadow. The color of the roof I completely guessed. I was not sure what color it should actually be. And also the value itself, I made the mistake of not following the rule that Andy Evenson always says, is that if the color looks right or the value looks right, then it's wrong because it's gonna try a little bit lighter. Now I'm preparing to put down the trees, which is one of the things that attracted me a lot to this scene, those silhouettes of the trees. And at first I thought that this was too much paint and I had kind of ruined the mix by adding too much red. But this was kind of a blessing in disguise because it made me be able to mix thick enough paint to have the right contrast for the trees. Which, if I would have failed and had a very weak mix, then it would just not portray the amount of light that there was in the scene. Trees are a tricky subject, and I've learned that trying to paint them positively in a certain way usually makes me not be able to paint them at all. And so here I learned that I kind of let the brush do the work, and if a brush stroke doesn't go the way that I want it to, I don't try to correct it, because that's when I just ruin how the tree looks, and it looks more fake or more, well, man-crafted, you can say. One thing that I didn't do very well was separate the trees or put them together in a way that it was satisfying. But that's okay, because my main goal was to portray the intensity of the light that was coming from behind, and that these trees were actually in shadow from a distance. So putting them as they are at the moment wasn't the best, but it's okay because the scene itself still looked beautiful. I still feel like I captured the feeling that I wanted from that scene. And now as I put the much darker trees, you can see how the house starts looking very light and in value, and I'll go back and fix that in a moment. Now I'm adding the dark side of the trees that you can't really see in shadow, and I don't know why I was being meticulous about it, because from afar I couldn't really see through the tree branches. So that's another kind of mistake, but not really. It's just making my life a little bit more difficult. I know at the start of the video I said that there wasn't gonna be a lot of commentary, but apparently I have a lot to say about this painting. So I'm sorry if it wasn't as relaxing as you'd want it to be. Now here I'm preparing to go back into the house color and to darken the tone so it's closer to the ones in the trees, so the house don't actually stand out so much. At the end of the day, it was a small mistake that I'm just trying to fix, and thanks to the fact that I just painted lighter and not darker, I was able to go in and paint it again. And even the white of the house I'll have to darken a little bit, as well as make some marks to imply a window there where I'm going through right now. There's some details that need to be added and others that really do not matter at all. And it is the balance of finding those details that matter and those that don't matter that will make our paintings a lot better. So you can see now I'm trying to unify that big shape as a final touch to finish the painting.